What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Co-Create workshop. My name is David Verjano, and we're really excited today to go through kind of this workshop I put together to discuss, the world of design, the world of creativity, as it relates to AI, as it relates to design tools that are now rapidly being integrated with AI, and really to give people a sense of peace and understanding that the tools aren't just taking over the world, and it's not going to eliminate the need for being creative or being a designer, and really having it's about being able to utilize this tool and do it in a way that's also human. At the end of the day, these are tools that acknowledge, understand, and take references, and then they use that to come up with different ideas or to help kind of like explore different options and whatnot. And really, it's finding that hybrid approach to being able to use both without losing the soul of being a creative or a designer, but also not being left behind, because to me, I consider it like an Iron Man suit. It's being able to leverage this and gain a little bit of speed, or do some of the elements that you might not want to do, maybe from a research standpoint, or being able to explore more than you would. All those things help you streamline, help you, get to a point where you're now using it as a sidekick. You're co-creating with AI, and as well as with your own human internal analog methods. So that's the world that we're in today. Ever since the internet came about, this was kind of like the route that things have been going. It's, we have access to so much information and access to visuals, data, information that you can use, and now it's just a matter of these tools being able to machine learn and aggregate and put it all together for you in different ways. And it's really about guidance, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but we'll jump into the presentation here. But again, to give you a little bit of background on me, we're not just going to jump into the tools. We're going to talk about how I got here. And I'm born and raised in Miami. I'm one of the few that didn't go away. I stayed here all my life, and I went locally to Hialeah High, and I studied at Barry University, where I got my degree in advertising. I also studied sport management, so always thought that I was going to be in a sports marketing department or working in that world. But fortunately, I was able to find a way to blend those two worlds and do different things in sports as well as just creativity and advertising in general. Funny enough, when I was younger, obviously everyone wants to be a superhero if you're a little boy. I thought I wanted to be Batman. I wanted to be an MLB player. I wanted to be a lawyer. At one point, I also wanted to be a Publix bag boy. I just wanted that, being able to have that interaction with people at the checkout line. Those are the kinds of things you go through, you imagine when you're a child. And part of my career trajectory and the things that I've learned along the way has been kind of like not allowing your child, that inner child, to die, and not allowing it to go by the wayside, because creativity and that imagination that you have as a child is truly what unlocks some of the most magical and amazing things in life. And I think that being able to leverage that in your career and using tools now that can actually make you think and explore and visualize things in ways that have never been possible before. If there's one thing that I would say is a silver lining with some of these AI tools, it's the fact that you can have children now that, let's say they aspire to be a director or make films or something visual of that in that world. They can actually storyboard, they can actually come up with scenes and clips and visualize these ideas that they have in their brain. Not to use it as a crutch, or just use it as something that now they don't have to think. It's about, if you do it intentionally, if you do it methodically, you can actually open a new world of visualizing some of these things that otherwise stay stuck in your mind. There's so many people that are trapped artists in this world that they haven't been able to explore visually these ideas that float in their minds. And now we have the opportunity and the tools to make that happen. So again, to wrap up on my end. My first job really out of college was as a scriptwriter at Channel 7, WSVN. I didn't really have anything lined up in the world of marketing or design, but I had that lined up. I had a professor, Craig Stevens, who's the anchor there, who said, hey, if you have nothing set up, I'll put in a good word for you. You can, work at Channel 7 doing some of the scripts. I mean, it was a tough job. It was working overnight shift, 2 a.m. to 8 a.m., getting paid $8 an hour to write the news stories that happen overnight. But I always loved the media, and I always loved, getting some of that experience, because you get to see how do you condense a story, something that happened, into sentences, into something that gets said in a matter of seconds and then is on to the next story. And then really that helped me also realize how things happen on social media and other media channels now, these bite-sized moments where how do you get someone's attention? How do you make sure that you get the most salient, most important things across without losing the viewer, the listener? And that's always been at the core of why I entered the world of communications, and why I find it so important to understand the technology, the tools, and the techniques, the fundamentals that all go behind it. Because you can have the fanciest camera, you could have the best computer, you can have all these amazing tech tools, but if you don't have the fundamentals, then it's just soulless. It falls short, and nobody's going to pay attention to it. It's going to be very generic. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And to wrap it up, I tried finding a spot in the career of creativity and advertising for, it was a handful of years before I decided, you know what, I'm going to go on my own. I'm going to start my own digital agency. I'm going to freelance. And that was in 2013. And I've been on that journey ever since. I've been a partner at another agency in between that. And now I'm a partner here at Cultura Media House, helping, with the creative agency and some of the other channels and efforts that we're doing today. So we're excited to have this workshop to talk about it, and taking things back to where I started when it came to something like Photoshop. Like, Photoshop's been around for a very long time. I believe it was since the 90s. I jumped in right around 2006, 2007, when I took a yearbook class in my high school at Hialeah High, and had to use that to kind of come up with some of the graphics, some of the elements that go in the layout of the book, some of the stories that we made. And back then, obviously, I didn't have money, so went online, torrented, illegally downloaded Photoshop, had a copy of that, and was able to, mess around with the tools. For me, it was opening it up and seeing like this little toolbar, this toolkit of what is there available. What's this brush? What's this eraser? What's this selection tool? All these other tools that you can use, and really just being able to experiment and tinker with it. And that always made it for something that it piqued my curiosity. I was like, how the hell do I use this brush? How do I use the lighting and shading and all these other little elements that you explore when you open up Photoshop? And that was really how I got into the world of design. And ever since then, like from high school, I then went to college. I would make flyers for buddies that had, student organizations or different flyers for different events going on. And that was kind of like how I started using something that was a hobby and started to like apply it in a more professional, semi-professional way. And I never stopped since. So I've been, using Photoshop now for basically 20 years. And it hasn't really stopped there. And really the other part when it comes to creativity that is fascinating and that keeps me going is one of the classes that I took in college was a black and white film course at Barry University. And that opened my eyes to how photography works. Like, you had to shoot it on film, go into the dark room and develop the film. There was no correcting it in Lightroom and just like digitally enhancing. Like, if you wanted to mess with the shading, you had to go and dodge and burn and move the photo in different ways and expose it to light in ways that would highlight or low light or burn, so that it could kind of like emphasize or darken parts of the actual photo. And so those are the exact things that then get translated digitally into something like Lightroom, Photoshop, and some of these other visual tools. And that took me back, and it gave me an appreciation for film and for kind of like what it is to shoot and what it is to develop, because the main thing that I learned from photography was perspective, right? Like it was going and meeting other photographers and going on photo tours of downtown Miami, and just kind of exploring that and being able to look at how these things can come to life and how you can take perspective in a new way. You can frame something. It's about cropping. It's about putting together a composition that you can actually think about in ways that the average person might not have seen it, right? Like that's really what you bring to the table, is your perspective, is your ability to kind of frame things and shoot things and kind of like bring your own way of viewing the world. And that's what photography did for me. And I got into architecture and shooting things like landscapes, kind of like framing that all together. And that's what to me was the most fascinating part of photography, capturing moments, freeze framing an activity, a moment in time that can now live on in a photo album, in whether it's digital or print. And that was always like the most important part of photography for me, was being able to understand perspective and how do you bring things to life, and then blending it all together is the most important. So I studied advertising, and one of the most powerful moments that I had when I took a course was my professor brought a can of Campbell's soup and he slammed it on the table, and he asked everyone in the class, he's like, what do you think about when you hear and you see Campbell's soup? People were like, oh, I think of warmth. I think of fire. I think of like sitting around the table with family. There was all these ideas and, these moments in your mind that are like framed, right? And then he ripped off the label off the can, and it's just a metal tin can sitting there. And he's like, what do you think about it now? And it's literally just a metal can full of soup. But it was the branding. It was the actual, from the label to the commercials to the print ads to everything that went into making that brand create those associations. That to me was powerful. And this was me finding a way to like leverage photography to show a concept that I learned in a class, and talking about advertising and blending it all together. And this was a post that I did many years ago on my LinkedIn, on my Instagram. And so to me, it's not about learning individual tools. It's about learning how to then apply those tools to your world, to your, to what you do in your daily life. So that's kind of a background on me visually, creatively, how, I've kind of been able to bring together the different visual tools, the different kind of explorations. But before we even get into anything that involves AI or design tools today, I wanted to do a little bit of a speed run of how we got here today. So we're thinking about what, in terms of creative arts, art history, how did we even get to where we are today? And there was the era of instinct, right? You're talking about tens of thousands of years BC, where there was cave dwellings that we found, artistic paintings. And these people would create these works of art with whatever they had available to them. They would get pieces of moss, they would get hair, they would get brush that they would make out of wood and other organic elements. I mean, the pigments were made of like dirt and anything else, fruits, things that they could find around to actually, put it on stone, put it on whatever materials they had available to them. And that was the way that they expressed like these ideas, these words and stories that they would tell each other. Like, how would we leave a mark of it somewhere for other people to be able to follow the story? And that was really an important piece, because this is the beginning of art. This was the beginning of like taking something outside of the human brain and now applying it to something that becomes essentially timeless, or at least like something that gets passed on for many generations. And then we took those ideas and those methods, and then we refined the tools. We made more formal brushes, right? We made chisels, we made hammers, we made things that we could then etch into stone, we could put into paper, we could paint on canvases, and it was really about refining that. So, I don't know if between that entire time there were people that got mad that there were more formal tools. Like, oh, we had, back in my day, we used to actually just carve it in with another stone. Now they're mad that they got a chisel, or they got mad that they got a hammer. So tools are made to streamline like the the trial and error and the work that humans did before us. Like we are all built on generations before us, and we will be a layer of foundation for another generation moving forward. So that's to keep every phase that I'm talking about here is that, because then at one point we invented the camera and people freaked out and they were like, oh, it's going to kill art, it's going to destroy art. And in fact, it became one of the most powerful storytelling tools of our lifetime. I mean, I'm talking through a camera right now. I'm also talking in person. And these are ways that we get to capture and, you know, encapsulate some of the ideas and moments in our very lifetime. So, you know, as we see tools evolve and develop, we have to take a step back and look into history and kind of give context, because otherwise you're going to just get caught up in either pro or anti and pin against something, when in reality there is no winner in that argument. The ultimate winner is the craftsman that knows how to use a tool to get across their idea, their story, their vision. So again, we came out with cameras, and then we came out in the 1900s with video cameras and editing. Like you can see in some of these photos, there's film. They would then get the film and cut it up in different ways. At that point, you know, we talk about AI as not being real, but we would record things and then cut out portions of what happened and frame it in a way so it can be on a silver screen. That wasn't real. That was chopped up and edited in a way that they wanted to show you. Even when people wrote books, the Bible, things that have been rewritten and chosen as to what goes in there. So this idea of reality has always been kind of misconstrued, because it always been an edited version of what gets done. I mean, I think that as human as we all want to be, we probably don't want to be 100% transparent in everything we do. Like we don't want someone to walk in on us in our underwear and just see us with the first moment that you wake up, right? Like there are raw things in life that you maybe don't want to show the entire world. You only show it to your trusted loved ones and close, you know, family members. So I think that those are the kinds of things that I think about when I'm looking at history. And then even from the other angle, besides, you know, photos and video, we think about visual print and visual design. And we had hand-painted signs. We had hand-painted artwork that would go into film, into other things outside of stores, you know, in posters. And then we created the letterpress. And then now we're like, these letters that would have to be done by hand, now they're made into a block and you just, boom, do it over. So I'm sure, you know, craftsmen that would do this by hand kind of got mad at one point. They were like, that's not fair. How are they going to be able to do this and just run it on a print when I had to do that by hand? But nobody's worried about that anymore. And if anything, you appreciate, it's created a greater appreciation for the craftsman that would do things the analog way. So I don't see it eliminating anything. It just creates a space for these different things. If you want something fast, you can do it with digital. You can do it with something that's already streamlined. If you want something that's artisan, you want something that's crafted by hand, you can seek someone out. And there's a premium for that. So that's really where I see things going. AI, if you do it and you use it in an intentional way, you can still find that balance. But there will be people that say, hey, I don't mess with AI. It's not what I want to do. And I only want to spend time and work with people to do things by hand. But in reality, how much have we been doing by hand? If I just showed you that we went through a series of, you know, shooting with a camera that captures a moment that gets edited, shooting with film and video that gets edited and you know, done in a certain way. So you have to take all those things into account. And really now, like getting even closer to where we are today, visual effects have evolved, right? Like people are mad that AI is able to do these things visually animated, you know, how you can animate things now. Well, in reality, we used to do all these things by hand. Like when you think about Industrial Light and Magic, the people who made Star Wars, like they would have to make all these sets by hand. Like you would make every little piece of the costume of the actual scene. Sometimes it would paint a back plate and then add other layers in front of it. So it was a little bit of like a mix, but it was still all by hand essentially. And then came green screens. And then they're like, all right, cool. You still got the wardrobe stylist, but then now you have like a semi-fixed set where you know what goes on, but then in the back, everything gets projected with, you know, computer graphics, CGI. So again, we've been kind of blurring those lines and creating this new world of what visual effects are. And then we got to this point now. We don't even have green screens anymore. You have motion capture studios where the entire background is either a black box where it's just capturing motion, or it's actually a screen that's projecting the scene that they're in. It's almost like doing what you would do in post is happening live. So it's really about workflow and understanding that they went through these steps so many times that they realize, I would love to get that artist to paint the entire scene and do that, and it's going to take 6 months for him or her to actually make that come to life. Or I can pay them to do it digitally, or they can do a part of it like conceptual art, hand it off to a VFX artist, then get it to a certain point. So it's understanding like where do you want to pick and choose, and when you have some sort of time constraints, when you have something that actually has to get done in a timely manner, those are the decisions that get made when it comes to commercial work. So again, bringing that all full circle is the tools and the technology might evolve, but creativity and the thought behind it does not change. Like the best ideas will win if you're able to then convert that into direction that gets executed. So again, you can have all these tools at your disposal. I mean, I can have a piano and it means nothing for me, but hand the piano to Elton John and he's going to be an amazing world-class artist, Hall of Fame level musician, right? And that goes with anything. A basketball, I'm going to be a guy who plays at a local park, a pickup game. You hand the ball to LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade, all these guys, and they're making a career and they're in the Hall of Fame. It's all about the person with the tool in their hand and how they actually use it. So every era of humanity has been expanded with these tools, but what hasn't changed is our senses, how we perceive emotions, how we smell, how we see, how we touch, how we experience all these things. So now where are we today, right? We've kind of gone through a little bit of a speed run of the history, how all the tools that have kind of like gotten us to the visual world we are today. And we're talking about something called generative AI, right? I don't even like that name. Honestly, I'm just using it because it's what's being used right now. But in reality, it's machine learning used in tools to help you visualize in different ways, right? These are just some examples of things that I've experimented with to show like, what can you do, even if it's just for fun. It's understanding like how you can use it to show a scene or perspective, use architecture. For me, I love basketball, I love architecture. I'm like, imagine a basketball court if it was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. How can you bring that to life? And even if that's for your own personal enjoyment, it doesn't have to be something that gets then sold to the world, but it's how do you visualize something? How do you tell a story? Like even if it's for a presentation, you're in front of a group of people, sometimes that helps you get the point across even better than just like, oh, let me get this stock photo or this clip art that I can find. It might not hit as hard as something else. And also just conceptually, if you're trying to pitch an idea, I think it helps kind of give that, what are you thinking and how it can, like, it's going to look something like this. It's going to be, we can approach it this way. Those are the kinds of things that I see in the use cases of AI. And one of the things that's like really undeniable is the speed at which you can explore ideas and visual directions. So what you used to do to kind of like explore one or two different styles or directions, you can now do that at a much more rapid pace. You could get these visuals, whether it's a character or a scene, and you could say, now do it in the style of a winter scene in Siberia. Or also do it in a scene that's like a psychedelic jungle environment in the middle of Brazil. And you could just do all that. And so you could take a concept and be like, what does it look like here, here, here? And be like, actually, that looks terrible. This looks great. Let's explore this one now. But you now are able to kind of like turn these stones and be like, well, we looked at it and we thought this was the best route. Instead of, hey, we don't have that much time, or like it's going to take me hours and hours and days and weeks to actually explore all this stuff. We can get to those early iterative phases and kind of make a decision with much more speed and understanding and depth of that kind of like exploration. And the way I think about it is using AI as another tool for your sandbox. I am big on the idea of like when you're building a brand, when you're building a concept, like create a sandbox for yourself that you can then mess around with and see, can these ideas take life in different methods? I want to make a poster, I want to make merch, I want to make a short film, all these things. I want to make a version that's more mid-century modern inspired. I want to make a version that is very Bauhaus. I don't know, like just making all those things and having a playground for you to mess around with, even if it sits in that file, that folder for just you to see, you know that that's something you can always reference back and be like, hey, how did we get here? Oh, because we explored all these options and we made sure that we had a clear understanding that this is why we got here. And then inevitably, as part of this job or this motif of being a creative, you have to then have ethical awareness. You don't want to just, there'll be trends that you see go online like, oh, give my portrait and make it in the style of Studio Ghibli. Get my portrait and what if Wes Anderson did this? What if this person did? And that's cool as like a cool little like trendy thing you could share with your friends. But if you're then going to try and capitalize on it and make money off of it, you can go and try that. You're always going to be at risk of maybe copyright law or someone flagging you for something. The other part is the market, the population being like, hey, I think that's you're just ripping that off, and I'm not going to invest in you. I'm not going to buy your work. I don't see your value because you're not doing it in your own way either. Because it's not about being 100% original. I don't think that there's many 100% original artists anymore because we've all learned and studied others before us. Like, we don't live in a vacuum. We live amongst other humans because of other humans. Like, two people came together and had us, you know what I mean? And then multiply. Like, we don't live in a vacuum. There is no, you have to, I guess, go into space and like remove yourself from humanity to come up with an original idea that hasn't been explored yet. So that's to me where things get murky in this conversation about, I think you can bring inspiration in from other sources and still find a way to add your own perspective. How were you raised? What things can you bring to the table that are different that can actually create a new perspective of that? You know, like Andy Warhol was famous for a lot of things, but one of them was painting a Campbell's soup can. Like, Campbell's soup existed and he used that and made his own version of it. And he now goes down as one of the best artists. I know that. And then there's pop art, and there's also those conversations. Some people love it, some people hate it. And so it is all up for debate, and ultimately there's different audiences for different things. So don't get caught up in these narratives of all AI is bad and you shouldn't use it at all. I think even going to one of the most recent creative mornings that I hosted, we went to Fountainhead Arts, which is here in Morningside, and they have different artists in residence that they invited. And one of them, he does industrial design, he does 3D visualizations, and even he brought to the forefront, he's like, if he's designing a space in a 3D world, like a video game essentially, he's like, I can spend time making that window in the back that's blurred out that you don't see, or I can get an AI version to at least make that function while I focus on the characters and I focus on their motion. Like, it's also picking and choosing, especially when you look at the depth of what needs to be made when you're like fabricating a world. Like, some of the things, even there's moments in Star Wars where they literally had like, I forgot if it was beans or like rubber pieces to make a crowd in the distance. So like, okay, there's no originality there other than that's creative solution for something that's not going to be seen from a perspective because it's a speed, a pod race, and it's just going by fast. So you're not even going to look at the faces of the characters. So I don't think anyone would have been mad if they would have made those little beans or those little rubber pieces or whatever they were as AI, because at the end of the day, they were just kind of in the background. They're not something that's in the foreground. So that's the way I think that, intentionally using things so that they're not just like the entire thing was created with AI. I had no input, basically remove the human from it. That to me then feels like cool. I don't have a connection with it. That's where you got to be wary of it. And then anchoring this now in the design principles and kind of like fundamentals is really important, because creativity without direction, you're just going to run into generic, things that just miss the mark. You're not going to be able to make that work. And even with AI, the basics matter. You're talking about hierarchy. What is the person supposed to see first, second, third? How does the eye navigate through that scene or that image, that composition that you're making? The layout, right? Like, how are things arranged in that space, in that poster, in whatever you're making, that graphic? If you have a lot of text, you have to give things importance. Like the headline probably should be the thing that's the most important. Or you say the visual is actually the thing that's the most important, followed by the headline, followed by some details. And maybe there's like some fine print. But then giving that the right amount of space and room so that people can navigate that. If you give everything the same weight and space, you're not going to read it. It's going to be like just a mess for them to even understand and look at. So those are all the things that you consider. And then even typography, like slapping on any font, like if I would have redone this with Comic Sans, it would look very different, and you probably would not look at it as seriously. If I give it Times New Roman, it might look more old school, but still feel refined, still feel like it has a certain level of regalness or a certain level of like, okay, it's those, the choices you make when it comes to typography matter, because it speaks to the personality, the mood, the kinds of things that people will perceive when they see it. You can have the same poster in 5 different fonts, like make 5 different versions with 5 different fonts, and they will all be perceived differently because they speak differently. They all have characteristics to the lettering themselves that lend themselves to being perceived a certain way. And the last thing, color and composition, a color sets a mood. So I mean, it's blue, white, and stark could feel very like cold, could feel like a little bit sterile, like a operating room. Whereas something warmer, yellows, oranges, reds, could feel like either inviting and cozy, or it could also feel like, if it's overly red, it could feel hellish. It could feel like something that is it's burning, and it's almost like I need to get out of here, like a pressure cooker. So all those things matter, and understanding these principles are what matter when you're creating something, whether it's with AI or not. And again, a lot of people have heard about the golden ratio, Fibonacci sequence, rule of thirds. Like in photography, this is something that you learn, and it's something that gets translated across a lot of visual things that you do. And being able to put something to like a bottom right corner or top right, or like using that to draw your eye and draw the viewer's attention to somewhere almost unpredictable. Because if everything's shot dead on and everything's framed the same way, there is going to be a certain level of your eye is going to assume that I'm going to make up the rest of the scene. I know that it's going to be shot in the middle and nothing's going to change. And then that means that there's nothing dynamic to keep the attention. So things like this is what draws attention. It makes you navigate the photo, the scene, in a way that now, like, you can still put something dead on, but then it makes in something else that has a different angle, a different perspective, so that you can keep something more dynamic. And those are things that you apply both in photography and in advertising. Like the Volkswagen ads of the 60s were very powerful in this way. Like you could tell the rule of thirds being used in that middle one right off the bat, top left corner. And then, so the visual is the hierarchy-wise primary. Secondary is the font, the headline saying think small, and then followed by the copy. And then little, the logo goes at the bottom. So, and even there's still rule of thirds in all of these. It's just different ways. Like the one all the way to the right actually it takes up almost more than 2/3 of the page. And the car is even set just below dead center. So those are little things that if you were to reframe this and just put everything dead center, it doesn't have the same impact. It's meant to grab your attention as you're flipping through magazines and you're seeing a bunch of like editorial things. Like how do you visually then look at something and be like, all right, that's cool. What is this about? And draw them in. Today we call it hooks when you're looking at videos and reels. Like this is the visual hooks of the past. And yeah, originality is still king, right? Like you still have to bring your own take. If everyone has access to the same tools, how are you using that tool differently? And what is what makes you different, and what is what you can also use to connect with someone else? Because sometimes you could be a creative that's so eccentric and do something so different that then it connects with nobody. And if you want that, you can be an artist for that sake. But if you do want to connect with people, if you're trying to sell art, if you're trying to sell an idea, something with commercial ad, like you do need to connect. There needs to be a tug and a pull. And I think that just AI can play a role in these decisions. It's not that it replaces originality. In fact, if you use it 100%, it's not original. It's then just aggregating what exists, and you're not bringing anything new to the table. So, these tools help democratize access and being able to visualize these things. So if everyone has access to the tools, what are you going to do to stand out? What are you going to do to separate you and be an original creator? And I love this idea of a blender, because like anyone can make a shake, anyone can make a smoothie, but the quality of the ingredients that you put inside of it matter. If you're putting rotted apples and fruits and other vegetables, it's going to come out tasting like crap. So you need to bring your own ingredients and your own taste and your own curation. And you're like, you know what? I'm adding 3 little doses of cinnamon, even though the recipe said 1. I'm going to add actually something else. I love anise. So I'm going to throw in anise there because I grew up and, my family would make anise in different desserts, right? And then that's how you now bring in your own background, your own culture, your own thing into the mix. And you can apply that to creative arts, to visuals. So just think about it. If you put crappy, weak inputs, you're going to get crappy, weak outputs. You don't want to just feed it things that are generic that anyone can do, because then that's exactly what you're going to get on the other end of it. So again, now what I see and where I see things going is that the creative role is just evolving, right? It's no longer just about execution. Like, you can be a designer, you can be a copywriter, you can be a photographer, videographer, but the actual craft and skill of being able to direct is becoming more and more important. Because if you have a vision, if you have like these ideas of how you want things to play out and how you want to capture a moment, how you want to frame it, that is what really is going to help you go to another level, especially when you layer in tools that have AI in them, because you can now actually map out an entire series of scenes. You can go and do incredible things, even just from a conceptual standpoint, that help get your point across in a much more powerful, impactful way. So that's, to me, where I see things going. And prompting right now is, buzzword for these things, or visual, if it's verbal, like written, or you're speaking to it. It's moving more and more towards natural language, meaning like if you can speak these ideas into existence, they can now actually be created in different ways. So again, if you bring in storytelling, if you provide that level of curation, that's what's going to help you stand out. And that's why your point of view matters more than ever. And this is just a rough kind of idea of a workflow of how AI could or should be used if you're in this space, is this like human AI human back and forth, like a ping pong, almost like you're handing off a piece and then you're using part of that piece, and now you're bringing in and you're adding the human touch again. It's not just human to AI and that's where it ends, because that's where things, what they call AI slop, what people look at and say, that's terrible. There was no thought behind that. That looks like you don't even see that they have 6 fingers, or that person's face is falling off, or like that it just doesn't make sense. Like, that means you didn't pay attention to the details. And in reality, the most human thing is our imperfections, attention to detail, pattern recognition, all these things that humanity hones in on and the human brain is a master at. That's what brings it to earth and makes it relatable and doesn't feel like a soulless generated art that exists in the world. So like, you define the problem, you think of like, how do you want to go about it? You then can use AI to help you generate ideas or explore ideas. Even, hey, I have these ideas. Maybe, are there any, things that I'm missing? Are there any like blind spots that I have? Maybe it could bring some new light or a new perspective that you weren't thinking about. Almost use it like a soundboard, like a sidekick in some capacity. If you don't have someone that works with you that can help be that soundboard. And then, all right, cool. Now I thought about that. Now I'm going to curate a little further. I'm going to create these concepts. And now, hey, can you help me kind of like further refine, or maybe make an element, like we said, maybe there's a part of the scene that I don't really need to go and make it by hand and design that part by hand. It's in the background. I'm going to focus my efforts on nailing the character, nailing that one focal point, that one action in the scene that I want. And make sure you add the final touches. You polish it. Make sure that you add all the finishing pieces that make it cohesive, make it true to you and true what your vision was at the beginning. So if you start with a vision, end with you being the decider of that vision. Don't be like, okay, I had the vision, now the AI decided for me. That's not how these things should work. So with all that said, now comes a portion of the more interactive part and using AI tools, right? And using, or like at least thinking creatively and then jumping into AI. So the first one is actually, well, these are some of the tools that we'll get into today, right? There's plenty more that I haven't touched on. If not, this would be a 2-day workshop essentially. But Midjourney is one that I use a lot. Firefly I've been using a little bit more, and so with Nano Banana, Google rolled out Nano Banana, and now it's integrated into multiple tools here. Like you can use that in Midjourney, you can use it in Firefly. So it's being integrated into a lot of things. So it's interesting how they're already like kind of realizing it's not one size fits all. There's like you use this thing for one thing, and then you bring it over here, and you work with another one to make another piece of it. And then ChatGPT just more of like helping frame or look at certain things from like a direction standpoint, copywriting standpoint, just running things through it to help you reframe or like think of other ideas is where I look at it. And sometimes most of them are bad or they don't make sense, but maybe there's one thing it said, they're like, you know what, that now sparks something that I can actually follow. So the first exercise that I wanted to start with is thinking and speaking like a director. And this is one exercise that is important for anyone in this space now. It's you should be able to close your eyes and describe a scene in as much detail as possible. Think about, imagine if you're describing to someone that's missing a sense, like they're blind. How would you describe it to them for them to like visualize it in their mind? Because that's what you're doing. You're giving, if you're going to give this to another person or you're going to give it to an AI tool, they are blind before you give them anything. They don't have the context. So if you close your eyes and you're saying, we're in the middle of a desert and there's one solitary person wearing a red robe and they have a crown that's kind of chipped off. And you can tell they've been out there for multiple days because there's sand stuck to their skin because the sweat has kind of like, you know, attached the sand and they haven't really had a moment to clean themselves. So it gives a sense of space. It gives a sense of time and place. They're walking with a limp, so you can feel like maybe they've been walking out there for a while. There's a dust storm in the horizon, and now you know that they're trying to escape that. Will they get out of it? And then you can add other layers now. Like, is there another character entering the scene? What colors are in this? Is it warmer tones? Is it darker tones? What other elements can we add in here? You know, again, if you can describe in as much detail what they're wearing, what they're doing, the ambiance of the scene, then you can allow for a tool in AI to help you actually bring it to life, or another creative, right? Like this works both ways. I think this is just a good exercise to get people in the method of thinking this way. If you're going to be the creative director or the person leading, spearheading a project, and you have to have a vision, like this is a good exercise to do, because otherwise you're then just making it up as you go. When you don't have a plan and you're making it up as you go, you usually realize down the line, either you're going to stumble upon something because you're like, damn, I didn't think about that. So now I got to stop what I'm doing and think about that. Whereas if you spend more time doing this up front, it's basically like backlog and spend a lot of time in the thinking and crafting this vision to then, so you have a clearer picture when you move forward. So what I think we could do now, and we could kind of switch gears here and literally pull up Midjourney as one of the tools. And I can also show you a way of using a tool like ChatGPT to help you refine. Because like maybe I'm explaining in a certain way, but I know that ChatGPT and some of the custom ones that are being made, like you can ask it to like help elaborate or refine or add more context to your prompt, right? So let's say that we want to do that scene. We're going to do a wide shot of this person that's out in the middle of the desert. And you can start simply by that. You could say like wide shot of desert scene. And you can say character in the distance wearing a red robe and cracked crown. Their skin is has sand stuck to it. in the distance, you see a dust storm in the horizon. And it can be as simple as this, and you can always add more. The good thing is like you get an idea and then you say, oh, it's missing this one piece that I can add to it. So we're going to make a landscape because we want it to be like a bigger scene. So, and the thing with tools like Midjourney is as you use them, it also gets used to your style. Like there's a whole thing of like, as you generate things and as you like or not like things, it starts refining your own style in it. It almost like uses like, you like this or you like that? Cool. All right, so you like more of this, more realistic versus hand painted versus 3D rendered versus whatever. So you make, and you can make profiles and even mood boards within Midjourney to reference, to be like, all right, I like this. Now I can make sure that it looks like it has this aesthetic, this style, and this even color palette. So we have this scene here now where you have a character. And the main thing is that the character here is also very in the forefront, right? Like we probably want him more in the distance. So we would probably redo this and say like wide shot of a desert scene, vast and expansive, right? In the distance, a tiny character, right? So a big thing with when you're prompting, just look at whatever you write first in terms of like whatever you write first, second, third, it's taking that into consideration in that order. So if you put an important detail in the back end, it either might not get registered or prominently put as you want, as if you were like, if this is about the character, then you probably lead with the character. If this is about the scene with the character being secondary, then do it in that order, right? So those are the kinds of things you should think about when you're doing it. So now, like this one puts them a little bit further in the distance, right? So now we have this, and you can see in the distance, like I said, a dust storm that feels like clouds. So maybe I have to put, you know, in the distance you see a brown sandstorm. Ominous, you know, you can also add like layers of making it feel more threatening, ominous, and you could even say like maybe it has lightning with lightning inside the clouds, right? And now it's going to generate that. And that's if you just want to take what you did and like reprompt it, versus I can take one of these existing ones and go into edit. Meaning I could say, I like how that is for the most part. Let's just edit this portion of it. And it allows you to do that. So you see it here now. It's starting to like add in as it fully generates. You could see it started adding lightning into the clouds. It started making it feel a little bit more ominous. Like that's coming your way. Things are about to get serious here. And again, so that's the idea of like visualizing something and now bringing it to life. Like if you have this idea of a short film or just a scene, you can do that and show it on your presentation and kind of get the point across in a much more powerful and contextual way than let me go on Google and search and hope that I find these things. And then maybe I have to manually do it and make a composition and crop this out and put this person in and do it all manually. Like this doesn't mean that this is ready to go and hit publish and put it on a poster to sell or to, you know, make an ad out of it. But it is enough to give you an idea of like, all right, let's keep going down this line and seeing if like there's something here that then we could take it to something more formal, much more refined. So again, I think that is one example. I don't know if any of you here have something that you want to, you know, bring to life here. If you have any ideas, we could go ad lib style. If you want to start with an idea, maybe a scene or a character, we could just run through it.
Maybe like a swamp or something.
Okay. So a dark, moody swamp scene. What's in the swamp? What is there? A person, an animal? There's
Someone driving like one of those car boats or whatever.
Car boats, okay. A car boat,
Or an amphibious car.
amphibious car.
Yeah, there you go.
An airboat
Yeah, there you go.
driving through driving through the swampland, the wetlands. Is there anyone like who's driving? Is it a person? Is it an animal? Is it a creature? An alien? What do
He knows he's I see his
No, because I've done AI storyboarding like before, like
Perfect.
industrial design projects actually, so it's interesting.
Nice.
It's
I
just
like the layering of like adding that it's like a bit of canopy, you know, like it's like typing it or like I'm seeing mangroves among the swamp, like there's
Yeah.
So I like about this you can keep
Mangroves. Yeah. Layer the scene. And so mangroves layer the scene. An airboat driving through the wetlands. An airboat driven by, let's see, one of my favorite things is making anthropomorphic animals. So like humanoid animals. So like driven by an anthropomorphic alligator. Is he wearing anything or is he just a nude alligator? Wearing a guayabera. Probably won't come out, but through the wetlands. Is it daytime or nighttime? Daytime scene. Again, there's so much more that you can add to this. And I personally, for my own use, I've created a custom GPT that helps me refine prompts. So if I don't think that that's good enough, I can go and take, yeah, this is already being made. So I can drop it in here, copy it, put it into here, and say, help me refine this prompt. And it's going to give me, sometimes it's going to add like a camera, even the lens it's using, or like what f-stop it's at, all these things. So, and it gave me a few different ones. Like here's one that says surreal documentary, right? And so let's copy it into here and read it what it says. So it has anthropomorphic alligator steering an airboat through tangled mangroves in a flooded swamp wearing a guayabera, murky reflections in the water, wildlife lurking in the reeds, eerie stillness, overcast skies, shot on Canon EOS R5, like you can give it even a film look too, surreal documentary style, all this stuff. And we'll do that one just to see what it looks like. But this is what came back from the ones that we see. This is where AI also goes off the rails. Like he's riding an alligator, which is the most bizarre thing. This one looks a little bit more along the lines here. This one looks like he's just chilling in the boat. It chose to wear the hat. No guayabera on the scene. This one looks a little bit more cartoonish, or like almost made, if it's not claymation, but it has that kind of, styling to it. And then now this is the documentary style version that, so it gives you a whole different, that's why I use, this is how I leverage ChatGPT in this case. I'm like, all right, I had the idea, but I felt like it wasn't that good. Now it's giving me things that are a little bit more, along the lines of what we're getting at. There's still details it's missing, like it's not a guayabera, right? But okay, you can then go in and edit out parts of it. I can take this into Photoshop now and apply it myself, or I can just mask out the portion that I want changed. So again, this is a good exercise for you to visualize a scene and try and add as much detail as you can. There is like a threshold at some point where if you stuff too much information, that the deeper in the prompt it is, that it's just might not come out, like it just isn't as important. Like if I really want the guayabera to come out, I might want to make that a little bit closer up, like the alligator wearing a guayabera instead of like this saying that in the 4th, 5th comma kind of thing. So those are just some of the examples, right? And then this is another fun one, right? So like one concept, we could take one of them that we just did And Midjourney released this thing called Style Explorer, where it's like these kind of compilations of different styles. They look completely different. They range from cinematic to artistic to 3D rendered, all this stuff. And you can literally just pick the ones you like and run it. Like you basically use the last prompt or the last thing you ran in one of those styles. So this is an example we did. Going back to the anthropomorphic animals, we deal with owls a lot here. So we got that one owl, and this was the prompt: cinematic portrait, anthropomorphic owl wearing forest green and burnt orange baseball streetwear, right? Urban nostalgia, all these other things, but that's at the core of what it is. And I used that prompt and I ran it through different styles, and they all look very different, even though it's the same subject, the same character essentially. It gives you a different vibe. Like this one in the top right very much looks like it's shot on a Polaroid shot, like with that harsh lighting, that flash photography. This one has an airbrush vibe, right? Almost like if it was done in the late 80s, early 90s. This one has an anime kind of look to it. Almost Studio Ghibli-like, but a little bit different. And then this one has more of like an abstract feel, minimalist, artful way. And then this one has like I would say almost like early 2000s hip hop kind of look, or late 90s 2000 look. And then this one feels like probably 70s porcelain, doll kind of thing, made of a different material. So again, this is a great way to explore ideas that you're like, I didn't even think about that, but now I can actually bring it to life. So if we're going to use, let's say it's this last scene, right? And we're going to go into the explore page where you can see here, lets you explore other things like images that people have made, videos too, right? There's videos now on Midjourney, so you can animate any of these things. But just going on the styles, right? Like I click this, try style, and it's going to use the last prompt that I just did, rerun it, and add the style to it. So we'll see what that looks like. So we said we're going to do 6. So we did that first one. Any here that stand out to you guys that you think I should kind of do? Up here? Yeah. So we got 2. This one right here? Yep. All right. Got this one? Here? Here?
No, the one with the guy like that, his face is almost up.
This one? Yeah, I just did that one now. So we have 3 so far. I kind of like this green one, so we'll do this one over here. So that's 4. Maybe one that's more like this painting up here, the one over here. Top left, yeah. Baroque one. That's 5. Charlie Brown here kind of look. Cool. So again, 6 of them are generating here, and we'll go to the ones that were selected. So this one already has like more cartoonish. It changes the vibe. It has a blurry kind of soft kind of bloom effect on it also. It's also like a warped camera, fisheye. So it gives a whole different vibe. So it's cool because to me, I'm like, these are ideas that I wouldn't have explored on my own. So it's also taking some, and you can then cross-pollinate. You could then say, oh, let's take that other one, those two, and hybrid. So you can really go down the rabbit hole of that. And also to keep in mind, like this is being done, those first ones that we ran had my personalized like style preference. So if you run it on yours, or if I remove that, the first images look different. So it's already kind of like framed in a way of like, out of all the thousands of photos that I've rated or liked or created, it's giving me a profile or giving me kind of a look. And now it's like taking that as the base and building on top of it. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So it's already cross-pollinating here. This was that weird like blue. Yeah, this is where the less direction you give and the more you start going off the rails, like you're going to get these weird, versions of it. But again, this is the when you add those styles, you are opening a Pandora's box of like, it has a lot of references that could be not really congruent. Well, like this could have been a sci-fi, very like dystopian cyberpunk looking thing that is now being brought into this world, which doesn't really work. This looks like it had like some sort of wolf motif, and then it's trying to make that work with an alligator and has like alligator skin on it. He's on a jet ski instead of, yeah.
Even when it doesn't fit, like there's elements that could be incorporated there. Like you get turned on to an element from this, like maybe like I don't know, between the flowers and the mangroves, like that bit of it can work. So I know that you can even like screenshot that part, use that as a reference.
Yeah, exactly. It's very much picking and choosing what you want in these scenes. This guy's, posed out here. I love how it switched from the what's it called, the airboat, to like some version of it looks like a boat meets a jet ski. Yeah, Cybertruck. So I think there's definitely a cyberpunk motif there. So is here. Like this character is definitely not an alligator, even though there's an alligator tail here. There's some interesting stuff going on here. Yeah, it has more of this like cell shaded, weird, harsh like black lines that go around some of the subjects and characters. Yeah. So it does some really cool kind of explorations here. Now this is the other one, has more of a cinematic version. Remove the alligator altogether, but I'm sure some of these other ones have it. This feels like a true like film photography style. It emphasizes the greens and the yellows heavily. Yeah, this almost feels like a real photo. This guy's just writing it into the distance. Amazing. Now this one, this feels like a fine art, kind of like fashion shoot. It has like a very metallic. Yeah. Speaking of Art Basel, this is probably up somewhere there. This guy's here at writing with one in the back. Creepy. The skin too, they added like a sheen, or like it almost feels like a metallic-ish. So that was definitely prominent in the, and now we're in the Baroque one. We're in they give him like a vest for some reason. A safety vest. I don't know where this came from. I think this is a Charlie Brown one. I guess it blended of realism with it heavily. So it's trying to do both. So what I could do also is I could run it and I could remove my profile from it, so it doesn't do it, and it'll probably rerun it and feel more of that art 2D style instead of it trying to blend both worlds, because right now it's definitely trying to do that, right? This guy looks shocked. Yeah, but it's cool. I also love that, which we can explore next, is how do you, using the edit feature, you can then go and select sections and choose like, all right, this scene is cinematic or it looks like made in a film, but I'm going to change the eyes, I'm going to change something else and throw in one of these styles to make just that portion. So I'll show you an example after we finish going through some of these. So now, again, I removed the style. We have a question.
So for example, say I like that picture,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to make, for example, a children's book using that picture. I need the AI imager to recreate, say, 10 images, but not exactly like that. It's like the whole theme of it
Mm-hmm.
and everything, but like different situations. For example, there he's writing a book, but maybe I want him on, having dinner with his family or something. How can we recreate that so that it doesn't change too much?
Yeah, so the idea is, how do we get character consistency? Make sure that we like this character. We don't want to veer too far away, make it feel like no matter what the scene or the angle, that person, that character is the same. So Midjourney has a version here where like an option where you can click, let's say it's this one, right? I'm going to use the image reference. So it has 3 little buckets here. One says image prompt, one says style prompt, and one has omni reference, which is really character reference. So if I grab the character and I put them over here, you can also say like how much you want it to stay as close as like kind of a bar. You can like pull it all the way, but then it also starts kind of expanding beyond the character into the scene. Like that scene, like there probably will be a lot more consistent using this reference, and you won't be able to steer away from it as much if you put that bar all the way to the end. So I keep it at 100 because that's like the baseline, and at least it's going to focus on the character. It acknowledges what the character is in the scene, and then you can then create other things. So now we're going to say anthropomorphic alligator playing golf. And we're just going to do that and see what it shows and see if it actually comes back with consistency in the character. And if not, then you can start pulling that bar, that omni reference a little bit further so that it keeps bringing that, over. And the other part too is you probably want, if you like that style, you might want to also make sure that same style reference, you could even copy the same one and put it in style reference, or you can copy the style reference code that we selected. Like when we were over here and we selected this one, it shows you what code this is, right? It has a numeric value. That's what it associates with these group of images that create that style. So you can either copy that into it, right, into the prompt, or you can actually drag the same photo, because here you can see again, now he's playing golf, right? Once it loads it up. But I want to make sure that it has that same style reference. So I'm going to run it again to make sure that it's more that 2D. It doesn't start adding these other things in here. But it's not too far off here. We'll see once it fully loads. It's at 95% here. So again, if we go, this was the reference we gave it. So he's wearing a yellow and orange polka dot shirt. He's wearing that hat with the strip on it, with the little ribbon on it. Has a big, and so consistent here, pretty much. Now he's standing, so it made up this part. Before he was in the boat, he didn't have that. So it has to make up, looks like he only has 1 foot here. So I don't know where the other one went. Also a slightly different color here. That's why adding that style might make sense, because, it looks more orangey than yellow here. He's in the boat here again for some reason. He's on the way. Also something happened with the mouth. Not great. So again, these tools aren't perfect. That's why you can't just like set it and forget it. It takes some, messing around with. Even here, like.
You nudge it, say okay, this is close, but in this area, you can kind of pick a spot and get it tighter and closer, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the other part that's also something to try is you find that character and then you can make a new prompt that says create a character sheet of the subject in different poses. And you could say front shot, profile shot, back shot, over, give it different angles so that from then on, now you have that as a reference point. You can either crop that exact thing when you want to use it or just always use it. So there's other tools that are better at character consistency, in my opinion. Some of them that are better on the photorealistic side, like people and things that look real. I haven't seen so much usage of characters that look more cartoonish, but I'm sure that there are people that know how to master it in specific softwares. But here now I applied that sref code, right? And so it at least has that 2D drawing version more consistent here. But it's pulling other things, like he's sitting here almost riding a boat, even though he shouldn't be. But the character is kind of consistent. So it's, this is something where there's no perfect solution just yet. And that's why it's very still conceptual. It's not like you can just grab it and you're good to go. There's things you need to do with this. And a true craftsman can use it and find a way to all right, I know how to use that as the framework. And now I can create variations of it, and it takes some refining. It takes variations when it comes to prompting. But going back, so we did this exercise, right, using one concept, trying different styles, and it helps you kind of explore visually. All right, now we really like that 2D, almost what's it called, Charlie Brown style, but it also has other elements. But you got to explore that really fast. But otherwise, it would have taken a lot longer. You needed other people to help you visualize that. So I think from that standpoint, it's very powerful to use tools like this to at least get ideas off the ground and test them out. And then this is the other portion that I was talking about. So I created this first image. It's like a gargoyle scene, and I applied this style that has deep reds and rich greens and whatnot. Almost looks like illustrated, but has a lot of detail, hyper detailed. And then the second one, what I did is I found another style I liked, and I selected the eyes, and I generated using a different style that was like black and white, kind of like sketch photography, sketch illustrations. I did it separate, like 4 different steps. I did the eyes first, I did the mouth, I did the claw, and then I did this other scene to see what it would come out. And so we could do that here, and we could find, you know, an example of what that is. I would say we go to one of the more photorealistic ones that we liked here. Like, let's say we'll go with this one. We'll go to edit, and we'll just open this edit tab, right? So now we're in this portion of it, and it lets you, it's pretty simple. It says erase or restore. So this is like my brush and what I want to like erase. And let's say that, first of all, let's pick one of these styles that we want to blend in. I want something that's completely different. So I would say if that looks realistic, then maybe something that's more illustrated, or
Up top in the corner, just above that one.
this one up here,
Yeah.
that, right? So we can copy this, right? So we have this, and now in the edit, let me go back to, we're gonna go here, we're gonna edit, and we're gonna go into the edit tab. So I'm adding that sref code automatically, and I'm just gonna like say, let's say the eyes, right? Like, let's say menacing eyes, I don't know, menacing eyes. And now it's gonna give me 4 versions where using that style, it's gonna recreate eyes that look that way. Sometimes it's often you gotta redo it again and see, but for the most part, this gives you some ideas. And that's how I did that other reference I gave you. I showed you that, you know, you're able to blend things. And sometimes you see like this first one, these are off the mark. That one, sort of, but maybe I have to like get much more granular and like get in there and say, go back to this one and restore all this. Or I could even do the whole scene too, and that would kind of create a different kind of feel. If we get all this background and we're able to just change it up and make it feel illustrated, that would be interesting. And sometimes you do smart select too, and it'll just select the character. So you're able to like drop in here. This said exclude. So you're adding these pieces to it. I can fill in the blank. Let's just say that, and then I'm gonna put erase background, right? So I have this now, and I'm gonna say like illustrated swamp scene. Ideally, gives me a version that uses that style as, you know, now to change. It's almost like you're able to then create entirely different environments for it. And sometimes it goes off the rails like this, it's about to do, but it almost like took it out of the swamp because of the style had like no reference for it. But again, now it's actually an interesting composition, right? And what's cool about it too is you could do this multiple times, and like now you have a version of the alligator with 13 different scenes, and you could do like a rapid montage of the character, almost like just rapidly changing the scene behind it, almost like a stop motion kind of look. And so it's a cool creative way. Like there's ways that like you have to think about that afterwards. Like what can you do with it that's interesting? And that's always like a fun portion of it. And the great part, like let's say we like this one, right? We upscale it. We got what we wanted. It's gonna generate that version here. And Midjourney now has, you know, motion. Like you can just animate. I haven't mastered so much the giving it direct guidance on what motion I want it to give it, but I kind of let it infer based on the scene. Like this is golf. So let's say we find one that we like of him playing golf. Let's say it's this one. And there's an animation here, right? It says animate low motion or high motion. And I'm just gonna hit low motion and see what it generates. And we'll end up, you know, seeing what that comes out to. But I want to do the same for this version of the mixed blended style, because now you're creating a whole hybrid, a remix of something, and then you're like, what would that look like if I animate it? And it might look terrible. It might like not work at all. But these are the kinds of explorative things and exercises that I enjoy going through, because you're able to then see what ideas come up that would have probably never, come up. So again, let's put low motion and see. Either way, it's kind of weird that he's just holding onto a stick now. It's floating in there. But, again, we're trying to see what comes of this. And so this one is about 60% done. One thing I've learned is sports motions, like, it does not do well. I've tried basketball so many different ways. The basketball, the seams on it move. They dribble through their body over their head. They don't know how to do that. At least on Midjourney. But there's other motions and actions that are more subtle. I feel like, to be safe, the more subtle the motion and steady, the easier it is to achieve. If you're asking it to do a lot, like pick up a glass and then drink it and put it back down, like, I'm telling you that it's not, most of this stuff is not going to look good. But
Probably by their next update, it'll be.
so at least this one, he hit the ball and it went there. So, and here's just swinging and the ball's bouncing,
Whoa.
So I also didn't give it context. So maybe if I give it a little bit more of a guidance, it gets there. But in my experience so far, it's not like it takes a lot of that into consideration just yet.
Like it's really abide by the laws of physics.
Yeah, it does not understand physics yet. So it needs to be plugged into, like, yeah, the hand motions. Yeah, a lot. I'm telling you, anything like the biometric stuff and the like actual motion of people and subjects is weird. It is not. So it does all this.
But I mean, considering how early stage we are in AI, it's not bad.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is not something you hit publish and you want to share with the world if it's for something important other than experimenting and just like showing these ideas. But it is still enough to be like, look, I showed you the reference and here's somewhat what I'm thinking. Maybe swinging, the ball this way. And also maybe you say, like, maybe the animation's too fast. I want it to be more choppy, like give it that lower frames per second to feel like more of a stop motion. We'll see what's going on here now. So decided to open his mouth for some reason. I mean, that looks pretty good for the character. The scene in the back isn't doing much. There, it kind of made up this idea of like the ripples in the back, And look, this one gave it that kind of slower frame per second. And here it just has things floating, almost like clouds or like. So again, this is something that didn't exist a few moments ago that now is somewhat in existence, and you're able to kind of go down these rabbit holes and see if there's something worth, furthering and refining there. And that's, to me, one of the funner exercises. I wonder if I have this in the edit tab. See view all. Yeah, so I can show you here how this came about. So this was the original scene, right? I had masked out the eyes, and then I got some different versions here, and I chose this one. So then I chose that one, and then on top, I edited. I go, all right, pick the claw. So I chose the claw here, and then it gave me these options. And I said, this one I like the most, very illustrated comic style almost. So I chose that. Now I'm like, let's do the mouth. And then you chose here, and it gave me this first one was my favorite, but there were other options. So again, you're like now stacking on top and, doing these different things. So I chose that one, and then I'm like, all right, pick this. And I put lightning, clouds, storm weather. It didn't really give me that. So it gave me like a comic strip here, gave me like him holding what looks like a sword. Then it gave me this, like another character reference, almost like him or his enemy, which I kind of liked. And then again, another one here like this. So that's like the workflow of how you take an existing image and then just start masking. And this is all in Midjourney, but you could then take this instead, if you don't want to work it in here, pull it into a Photoshop, anything else you use, and mask and do this your own. You know, I mean, you don't have to use AI for this portion. You say like, I got the subject, I now want to like do things manually because I have like clouds that I make or I style in my own way. So again, these are all like almost forks in the road that you get to decide what to do next. So it's not about only use this and do it all in here and hit publish and go to market with it. So that's the exercise of what I call selective style mixing. Find a scene, a subject, whatever the image is. And you can also import images externally, right? Like a photo you take, do the same thing here. This is not like only Midjourney stuff. You can find photos and do this exact model and be able to like elevate it that way. So there's that. And then this other exercise. So, you know, one of the other channels that I run here at Cultura is Courtside Creatives, is at the intersection of basketball, creativity, art, and just, you know, I use it as that kind of a platform to be able to explore some of these things. And using Firefly, I've seen a lot of these tutorials of how do you take something that's 2D, like a logo or an object. It's literally this. I use this, and then I created this in Firefly, which was, you know, create a texture, create whatever that subject is, and then apply it to the actual thing, and it uses it as a reference. So we can open up Firefly here, and I believe we can go actually to the gallery of stuff that I've made so that we can actually generate your stuff, create. Well, this is the creative production side now. They're actually like integrating almost that workflow side of it where you're able to create things and it's like node based where you're like, you say this image and you also like tell it to create other variations of it. And so there's a lot of tools that are being kind of integrated into Firefly that are, here we go, generation history. So these are examples of some of the stuff. I'm going to put view all so you can see like everything I did.
How do you know when it's time to step into Firefly, right? Like, is it, and these different things do the same things if you prompt them enough, or is it like, okay, now I feel like this does this better, so now it's time to jump into Firefly. I got it this far in Midjourney.
So Firefly, I strictly jumped into it because I'd seen enough designers and creatives using it for this exact application, which was like stylizing and making 3D a logo or an object. Sometimes they would do it with typography, which was dope. Like you got like a script letter, and then they would take it and they create like something that looks like slime or looks like gel or liquid, and then from that they're like, use that and use this reference and blend them together. And so that's what I did here. Essentially, like I started prompting like, oh, give me a block of concrete, right? And it gave me like a block of concrete, brutalist and sleek, but it was like in a scene. So I'm like, all right, I need to get a little bit more specific. I need to like say isolated and give me something that's on a clear background. And I got to the point where it gave me like one of these. So a square block of concrete, brutalist and sleek, and isolated background texture model. So it was one of these that I ended up using, right? And what you end up doing is you come over here on the left sidebar, you see this thing that says composition. You make sure that you have photo because you want it to be photorealistic. And you upload the logo, right? So you drop in the logo here. Ideally, what you do is you put the strength all the way up, and then for reference, so like this style reference, you select the block. So it does that. And then there's other little things like effects, right? I added studio light so it can give it a certain kind of like lighting in the scene, as well as hyperrealism so it can give it that look. And what ended up generating was a ton of these here. So you can see these references. I'll jump into, there's a lot of variations and some of them are better than others, but it was giving it to me like on a black background, and I'm like, all right, let me add a color. So here's one example of like what it came out looking like on a black background. So you have the logo now, it has depth, right? It has different things. But also I noticed that some of these things made no sense, right? Because I was like, this shadow makes no sense because it's almost like this part is extruded, but then that part is like sunken. So you got to go through some of these and be like, all right, that one didn't work out. Let's, make sure that some of these other ones maybe work better. This one looks more realistic because it actually has the depth how you want it, right? Like the 8 is extruded, this part's further in, and then the border is extruded as well. So you get that. And if you want, you come into here and you're able to describe, like, change the background, give it something else. And so this is, a good way to kind of use Firefly specifically. There's other use cases for it. What's cool now is, like, you can see right here, it lets you choose what model you want to use. So it has their own native one, Firefly image, but Nano Banana is now in here. And so the main thing is learning which models are better at what use cases. And the one thing that I'm learning from Nano Banana is right now it's really good at matching. If you give it like a direct thing you want to copy, it can do that. And if you want to maintain the integrity of the image without it like completely changing or doing weird stuff, it does that well. The other thing that it does really well is implementing text, like a lot of text to the T without like a misspelling, without there being blurred letters. Like, it is doing a really good job of that. We can actually pull up on Instagram, I believe it was Google Gemini. Yeah. So they did this carousel. All these are generated within Nano Banana, right? And they showed examples of using text, right? Like, this is an entirely generated image with all this text. And so you're probably asking, what's so pro about it? Well, for one, it's a lot better at generating images with a lot of words. Like this one you're reading now, how many words exactly? That's a great question. It is a poster made using, so it's like crazy styling. Even if it wasn't perfect, like you could still use this reference point and then move it somewhere else and be like, change it from green to orange, or like take out the happy faces and put something else. So like it's giving you something to work with and you're able to edit live. And then it got really like made it look like a laptop, right? With different words and different stickers, and each one has its own character. What does it look like knitted? So it's really good at this stuff now. Things that look real, that's contextual, and the text, like, I mean, that's a massive word. It just threw there in the middle, and it nailed it. I can't say that word, so I don't even know how to. Even this, the neon sign, it looks dope. It has that reflection, it has depth. It gives you, that sense of like, is that a real neon sign? So, suspense of belief of like, holy crap. And look at all this text. It made a whole little comic strip where this is like 4 paragraphs plus other little bubbles of text that it did. And even at this point where it used, spaghetti noodles, like to write text and make it messy and make it look like a kid did it. So it's really learning about which ones are good at what. This is what I'm learning from Gemini, that they're really good at being able to create images with a lot of text, nail it, and even give it, like, this feels like it's 1999, you're in someone's room, it's on their freaking desktop computer, and it's hard to notice the fallacies in it at this point. So that's where Nano Banana is at right now. I think it's doing a great job at that portion of it. I personally like Midjourney a lot for being able to create things that feel more photorealistic, that look cinematic, that have a certain style like that. But even going into the Style Explorer now and being able to, see how you can apply some of these things that have a completely different, this has that cinematic, moody, dark, but then it has like that motion blur. And you're like, oh, maybe I'm making like a film noir, dark story that I want to like get a few scenes across this way. So even your own portraits, like using that omni reference, like character reference, like you can import your own image and then you could then apply a style to it. So maybe you're like, damn, I want to do a new headshots, but I don't even know what style to like go about it. And then you find some references and now you run your headshot through there and be like, great, now I can either, some people will straight up use it. I haven't done that. I don't like just using a headshot. But I mean, if you can use a reference and be like, hey, I'm going to like work with a photographer, like a stylist or someone to create that in my own way, that's a cool thing that you have a reference now to like, so you're acting more like a director with clear references and clear guidance than just like, I don't know, make it pop. So this is taking creativity and design direction into your own hands and being able to do that. I don't know if you guys have any questions at any point, because pretty much the next phase here is kind of, we'll open it up to you to kind of working almost one-on-one if you want on any specific exercises or any things that you're dealing with when it comes to AI. So again, I showed the example here of like turning a 2D logo into a 3D asset. You can then also animate it, right? Like zoom in, zoom out. I was able to do that as well. But what I want to get into this next phase, and we'll wrap up the stream shortly. So whoever tuned in, I appreciate you all. I want to reserve time for the people that came out to, work one-on-one. But what challenges do you guys face when it comes to AI? Are there any specific tools that you're curious about that you want to like dive into, or are there any things that you want to learn just in general, like mixing and matching when it comes to, AI tools? So open it up
I have to show you something that you created my logo, and I did something on Grok with the logo you created. Can you go to my IG?
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Put AC dot. Put AC dot Andres.
Oh, Andres.
There you go. So that first, you created my logo, and then I used it on Grok, and I was getting mad because they kept trying to change it, but this one it didn't change it.
That's cool.
So I just clipped a bunch of videos and
Yeah.
put it into one.
It's nuts.
But yeah, I think this amplifies your practice, because it's like you create certain things, but people don't have your taste or your skill. So I wonder, like, how can I make sure that it preserves the logo? You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Because I was
Yeah.
trying to change the texture too, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
So you're saying I should use other things like Nano Banana?
Nano Banana is good at that, and so is Firefly. So like, let me see if I still have.
You keep rolling with the stream, or
You could cut it. You could cut it. Yeah. Yeah, because now we're just gonna dive into more hands-on.